So now if we go back in here and do new, now we're going to look at another new feature under flow control here that's called conditional branch. Okay, so we're going ahead and click, oops, sorry, read the tooltip here. It says creates a portion to be run only when specific conditions are met. Okay, so we're going to hit that. Now, this is like, in older RPG makers, like the really old ones, I think they called it a fork instead of a conditional branch. But the idea is, if a certain condition is met, then do something. So you can see here we have switches that we can choose here based on the state of the specified switch. So we can say if switch 001 is on, then do whatever we decide to have it do. So in this case, what we want to do is we'll go ahead and do variables. And we'll do our 50% chance variable that we did. And now we see over here there's an equal sign. So, and that could be fine. Other options we have are, greater than, equal to, less than, equal to, greater than, less than, and not equal to is what the bottom one is, so the equal sign with the slash in it. So, in this case, we want to do equal. So we're saying if it's equal to 0, then we want to do a certain thing. Now we see down here on the bottom, it says create else branch. It says also creates a branch for when the condition is not met. So we want to click that in this case because we do want another option for what to do when it equals 1. So we'll hit OK. So it says if 50% chance equals 0, so if this variable that we set here chooses 0 when the player enters here, then do one thing. Otherwise, do something else. So we could leave it like this, because in this case we only have two options. So if it's 0, then do something, and otherwise it would be a 1 in our case, because those are the only two numbers it could be. So this would actually work like this, but if you needed to specify further, you would actually go in here, go to new, go back to conditional branch again, and then again set variable 50% chance is equal to 1. And then you could create an else branch if there were more options, but there aren't. So we'll hit OK. And then now we have it more clearly listed here. And this is a little bit unnecessary for this step, but just to show you how to do it. If you wanted to have a random 1 through 10 or something, you would do this for each number. Each possible result. So basically what we're doing here is saying if it's 0, then we want to do one thing, and if it comes up as a 1, then we want to do a different thing. So go ahead and right click in here and go to new. And now we're actually going over to control switches, and like before we used the self switch, and we saw that, but this is one we actually want to reference elsewhere in the game, so we want to use a regular switch. Now just like with variables, we see we have a single or range. We want to do single and go ahead and click. And now this looks just like the variable screen, except it's the switch selector. So just like there, we want to pick our first switch and we want to give it a name. And here we'll say, let's see, what should we call this? Rest area NPC appears. That's fine. You can name it whatever you want. It's just a name so you know what you use this switch for. And then we'll hit OK. So that's our first switch, and what we want to do, let's just say if it's a 0, we'll put it on. That's fine, and we get to decide. You can decide either way. So we'll have this do this, and now what I'm just going to do is Control C and copy it, Control C and paste it down here into this section, because all we really want to do is modify whether it's on or off for that switch. So we're using the same switch. We don't need a second switch for this, we just want one. And so all we're basically doing here now is saying at the start of this auto run event, when the player first reaches this screen, choose a value for the variable 50% chance between 0 and 1. So it's either going to choose a 0 or a 1 for that. 50-50 chance. The game's going to choose it at random every time the player walks in here. So if it chooses 0, then we want to turn this switch on. And if it chooses 1, then we want to turn this switch off. Now, if I leave it like this, I'll just show you. And real quick, we have to make our transfer event. I forgot about that. So let me just go in here. Just for the sake of example right now. Oops, I don't want to do new. I wanted to do quick event creation. Transfer. I'll just put one right here, and we'll come back in and fill the rest later. But we want to go to our new map, the rest area. And we'll just put it... How far down was that? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Forgot to look at the coordinates. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, this is why you look at the coordinates, to help you. Alright. So we'll do retain. So I'll just put it right there. Now I'm just going to play test, save our changes, and show you exactly what's going on here. So when we go back here, I only made it on the one map. So now remember our changes we made back here. Seems like so long ago. And now they just can't walk on the grass, but they can walk everywhere else. So let's just head right down here. Use our transfer. Now I'm pressing the buttons on the mouse, and I'm clicking the screen, and I'm right clicking the screen to try to bring up the menu, and you can see it's like the game is frozen. So the reason for this is because the auto run event is still going. And with auto run, everything stops. Like the player loses all control over the game while an auto run event is happening, except for things like text boxes or things like that. So I'm going to head and close the testing. And I knew that was going to happen, but I wanted to show you some of the, I guess, dangers, or, maybe not dangers, but some of the things you want to be careful with auto runs is, you could have this sort of situation where your game basically just gets stuck because you have an auto run going and you never stopped it from running. So one way that you can stop it from running is at the end. Here we have all these, situations. Like once all this is resolved, once it picks a variable and it's controlled which, operation we want for the switch, if you just wanted this to run one time and then not ever again, you could use a self switch. That's one way you could do it. So you could go new, control self switch A is on, and then just like we did before, you'd make a new event page, go to self switch A, and then you can just leave it by default, below characters, action button, so then nothing would happen here. And then this switch, this event wouldn't run again. But in this case, you can go ahead and delete the event page by clicking on this button. You gotta be careful when you're using delete that you've got the right page selected too, because we could delete this one by accident, and then, there's no undo button for deleting the pages, unfortunately. So we can do that. But in this case, I don't want it to just run one time. I want this event to run every single time the player enters this map, but only, at the start. So what we do for that, go ahead and right click and go to new. And where is it? I never remember where this one is. Let's see. Is it on page 2? There it is. Yeah, so event commands on page 2. For some reason under character, which this one doesn't really make sense to me why this is here, we have erase event. It says temporarily removes the current event on the map. If the player moves off of the map and returns, the event will reappear. So that's exactly the behavior that we want. So we want to go ahead and click this, and then all it does is just put this little prompt here that says erase event. So what this means is that it will run all these, conditions, and since we put it at the end, after all these ends, then what that means is that it's after all this is running. So I'm not sure if you noticed this, and I didn't talk about it yet, but all these little diamond-shaped, markers here indicate where there's new lines of things, and you can see it goes in kind of like a, it looks almost like a parentheses mark, really, in the shape. So that's how you can see when things are nested inside of it. So this one's going to run, and then this one's going to run, just like with the map tree over here when you nest maps inside and it goes a little bit further in. So this, and you can click on each one too, and it kind of shows you like it's all related to this conditional evaluation here. But if you can see, this one is inside a little bit to show you that it's related to this. So like if this is happening, then stuff inside of that is going to happen. Same here. Else, if this is the evaluated value for the variable, then do stuff inside of here, and you can see it kind of moves in a little bit each time. But if we go after all these events have ended, then that means it's after this whole thing runs. And like I said, again, this is probably the easiest way to visualize that, is if you click on the actual first part of our conditional branch here. It shows you like everything related to the conditional branch is this blue area that got highlighted here. So you really only have three things happening here. You have this variable control that happens at the beginning. Then you have this whole section of conditional branches specifying what is going to happen depending on what the choice was for that variable. And then you have this erase event going on down here. So putting it at the very bottom here is what we want, because we want it to happen at the very end of all this. If for some reason we wanted it to happen like, just after one response and not the other one, then we could put the erase event in here, for example, to where it would turn this on and erase it, and then it wouldn't trigger in this case. And then, then you would still have the issue we have where your player's getting stuck and they can't control anything. So here we wanted to say, when it's all done evaluating everything else in here, then erase the event temporarily. So what that will do is it will do all this, and then this event goes away and the auto run stops running. So by adding that in there, I'm just going to play test again and save changes. By adding that erase event in there, we've got it working more like we want it to. So, and there's quite a full amount of stuff being covered all at once. I didn't even envision that I was going to cover it all that quickly, but here we are. So now we can move and everything has worked. Now, as you're in this playtesting area, if you hit the F9 key, I believe it is, on the keyboard, yes, okay. So if you hit the F9 key on your keyboard, then this window here appears. You can see it has S, 1 through 10, S11 through 20, and then V1 through 10, V11 through 20. So S and V are short for switch and variables. So what this allows you to do, you can see here, it says off to the side, rest area NPC appears switch, the current state is on. Now it says enter, you can change to on or off. So when you're in the test mode, you can actually individually, I'm hitting the Z key on here, which is the same as the enter key. You can actually toggle switches on and off manually yourself as needed, which is helpful for testing certain things. And likewise for variables. Here we can see our 50% chance one. Left, if we hit the left and right arrows, we can move them up and down one, so we can make them into values that they can't even be, depending on, because all we told it to choose between is 0 and 1. So, but again, you have manual control here too, and you can use, as it says, page up and page down. Goes by 10s instead of 1s, things like that. So, so we can manually see and control that here as well. But another thing to do is just, that's helpful, is just to see what the state of it is. So in this case, our rest area NPC appears switch was turned on. So that means that the value that it chose this time was a 0. So we're going to go back out. I didn't make a return event, did I? Okay, well then let's just show you what happens when we press F5. So you can hit the F5 key as you're testing, and it's resets back to the title screen. So it's another little trick. And so here, let's check again, and I'm going to hit F9, and it did the same thing again. Okay, so it chose the same one, but eventually, now let me just go back in here real quick, and we'll add another quick event here so that we can transfer back, and I can show you what I mean here. All right, this one goes back to here. Hit OK. And retain is fine for now. All right, so now we have a proper, at least one proper thing to go back to. Now, So I just wanted to demonstrate too that you can see that it will change the value depending on what it chooses. So here we go. We'll hit F9 again to check, and this time it's off. So okay, so I didn't even need to go back to show you, but so this time it picked off. So that's what we want to basically do with this switch and this variable and this crazy event up here. We're basically having it randomly choose on or off for this switch on a 50% chance every time that they show up on this map, every time that the player comes to this map, and then erase the event. So as they go back in, it'll choose a different value. Now, with all that said, whew, that was a lot. So what the point of that was back on this little character here, we want to do a condition of switch. So, and we'll remember here, it says, appears when the specified switch is on. So unfortunately, well, how you would do that without it is, I was just going to say, you can't say pick a switch and then make it be off for this to work. But how you would do that is just make another event page and say, if this switch was on, then do nothing. So that's how you would do that if you wanted something to work only when the switch was off. That's one way to do it. But in this case, we just want to keep it simple. So we're going to head and click switch here. And we only have the one switch, so we don't have to worry about picking, switch number 18. It's just switch number 1 for now. So what this is saying, just like with the self switch that we did earlier, is that when this rest area NPC appears switch is turned on, then this event will appear. Okay, so now it's basically dependent on this little setup that we did here, whether or not this character will show up. And so we're going to go ahead and play test it. And go ahead and run ourselves back over there real quick. Now this character, since we didn't set anything up like that, she's there 100% of the time. And now this time we see the character wasn't there. So if we hit F9, we should see that, yep, there indeed, the rest area NPC appear switch shows off this time. So our little machine that we chose to flip a coin for us decided that character won't show up this time. So let's go back in and check again. And now again they're not there. So again it shows off. Alright, so let's try again and check one more time. And this time they're there. See? So now we have the switch appears on. So that's basically one. I mean, that was kind of complex, and I apologize if that went over people's heads. But it's one way you can randomize things in the game to where the game is going to choose a value for you, and maybe sometimes you'll have a character there, and maybe sometimes you won't. So that's one interesting way we can look at it. We never ended up talking to this lady, so let's go ahead and do that. You can see here's our conversation. It says, hello there, today's weather sure is nice, isn't it? So you can see we chose stuff off to the right. So the choices themselves are right aligned on the screen basically. So we can say, yes, today's weather is lovely. So the sunshine feels warm and comfortable. This is a really nice place to take a rest. And then we can go back and talk to her again. And we can choose, I'm more of a fan of the rainy season. She'll say, oh, that's too bad. The sunshine really is lovely. Rain is nice too, though. So that's how that conversation goes. I think I'm actually going to change that, and I'll just show you guys too while I'm at it, because I think it might actually look better if we change the window position to the middle. So I hit OK, OK, playtest. Just run over there really quick. And now we can see what it looks like. Yeah, I think that looks a little better because of how long they are in this case. But it's up to you. You can make them left aligned as well, however you want to do it. But you can see in the middle there, it's a little more simple. And you can also click on these two. I'm using the arrow keys as I'm playing right now, but you can just click a choice. That works fine too. And this time we didn't have our little character guy there, so But we can see that. So hopefully you guys followed that, pretty okay. Just as a quick rundown again on the whole variable situation. Here we're setting one variable at a random value from 0 to 1. So it's basically a coin flip. It's a 50-50 chance, and that's what we named it, 50% chance. If the coin flips, heads or tails, whatever, you can think of it like that if that helps you. Maybe the 0 could be heads and the 1 could be tails, whatever. But if the variable ends up with a 0, then it turns the NPC switch to the on position. And if it ends up being a 1, then it turns the NPC switch to the off position. And then we don't have the player stuck in this endless loop of having it choose things for us, because this is an auto run trigger event. Then we just added this erase event, so it temporarily removes it from the map until the player leaves this map, and then it will come back, which is that's what we wanted for this particular case. That's the behavior we were looking for. And then again over here we have this character that we set up as the switch for its condition, to where this switch has to be turned on, and that's the same switch that was controlled by our auto run event, whether or not it's on or off. So this character has a 50% chance every time that the player comes to this map of being here or not. So hopefully that makes sense. And in the next part, we'll probably fill in some dialogue for this guy, and then we're going to make another section, and I think we'll start getting into a little bit of the city area that I want to make. So, thanks everybody for watching. We'll do more on variables and switches again in the future, so that if it seemed, kind of overwhelming right now, it's one of those things that gets a lot easier the more, practice and familiarity you get with it. So don't worry, we'll get there. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next part.